RBT may kill many companies.
A human has to be in the loop with an ability to control this.
Dark Side of the Boom. Streaming now.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching News 9 Live. I'm Kabir Naqvi, bringing you this special broadcast of top stories from our studios here in the national capital, styled exclusively by none other than Paul Moore. Ladies and gentlemen, expansive list of stories that we're going to cover for all of you today. First and foremost, taking a look at some national developments as well. There's anger over the Dausa rape, where a minor was sexually assaulted by a cop, allegedly. On the other hand, the Prime Minister, he's going to be addressing a gathering in Hyderabad. More so, what's more important to look at is the fact that after that 2+2 ministerial dialogue between United States and India, Stryker armored vehicles is something that's going to be built together here in India as well. That's on the cards as well, even as the Bharatiya Janata Party has now put forth their manifesto to the state of Madhya Pradesh. There are some international developments as well. Chikungunya vaccine has been approved by the United States' FDA, even as we're looking at some information coming out of Ukraine as well. But first and foremost, we're shifting our focus to the 36th day of that conflict in West Asia, where more than 11,000 people have been killed. The following content may contain visuals that are disturbing, graphic, or sensitive in nature. Viewer discretion is advised. This material is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all viewers. Please exercise caution while watching, and if you find such content distressing, we recommend discontinuing viewing. This disclaimer is provided to ensure awareness and to prioritize viewer well-being. It's day 36. Ever since the conflict broke out, there seems to be no end to the fighting. This is what we're tracking from the war front on the 36th day. 11,078 Palestinians and about 1,200 Israelis have been killed. 4,506 is the number of children that have been killed in Gaza. According to the WHO Director General, that's about one child every 10 minutes. According to the Israeli Defense Forces, 39 of their soldiers have been killed in that expansive ground operation that's taking place in the Gaza Strip. 247 is the number of soldiers and civilians that are being held in Gaza as hostage. 579, that's the number of aid trucks and with relief material that have been let inside the Gaza Strip so far. About 34,000 residential units have been destroyed across the Strip, this coming out from the Gazan Health Ministry. The Israeli Defense Forces also say that more than 1 lakh people fled southwards within a span of just 2 days. This even as Saudi Arabia is hosting that joint Islamic Arab Summit, where needless to say, Israel and the Gaza war is going to be the prime focus. There's another humanitarian gathering of the world leaders that took place in France, in Paris as well. It's a week-long gathering, and Emmanuel Macron, French president, is on record for saying Israel must stop killing babies and women across the Palestinian enclave. This even as Netanyahu, Israeli Prime Minister, says that he is going to improve lives of Israeli communities that are living near the Gazan border. All of this just a day after 4-hour daily pause was agreed upon across the Strip. Even as I'm talking about a 4-hour daily pause, hospitals are being bombarded, and those safe havens, those humanitarian corridors where people are constantly fleeing towards the south, they're not being spared either. Take a look at this. A child is killed on average every 10 minutes in the Gaza Strip. World Health Organization Director General Tedros told the United Nations Security Council on Friday. He said that half of Gaza's 36 hospitals and 2/3 of its primary healthcare centers were not functioning, and those that were operating were way beyond their capacities, describing the healthcare system as being quote-unquote on its knees.
Tens of thousands of displaced people sheltering at hospitals, families crammed into overcrowded schools, desperate for food and water, More than 10,800 people have now been killed in Gaza. Almost 70% of them women and children. On average, a child is killed every 10 minutes in Gaza. 1.5 million people have been displaced and are looking for shelter anywhere they can find it. But nowhere and no one is safe.
Well, you heard the WHO Director General. Nowhere and no one is safe. Israeli airstrikes hit Gaza's biggest hospital, the Al-Shifa, on Friday, one of several hospitals that was struck at dawn as Israel battles Hamas in the heart of the Palestinian enclave. This report has graphic content. Viewer discretion is advised. Take a look.
This is Gaza City's biggest hospital, moments after bombardment. People screamed and cried as they fled what Palestinian officials say were Israeli airstrikes at the Al-Shifa medical complex on Friday. The following graphic images, verified by Reuters, are filmed by Palestinian video creator Ahmed Hijazi. They show a number of dead and wounded, including children. This young girl is screaming, "Why, God, why?" Hijazi, who has a social media following of over 2 million, has been documenting the situation at Al-Shifa daily. In the footage, he says Israel's military targeted the hospital's outpatient clinic. Palestinian officials say several hospitals were struck at dawn on Friday, including the Indonesian hospital and the Rantisi Pediatric and Cancer Hospital in northern Gaza. Israel did not immediately comment, but has repeatedly said it does not target civilians and goes to great lengths to avoid hitting them. It says Hamas militants have hidden command centres and tunnels beneath Al-Shifa and other hospitals. Hamas denies this. Al-Shifa was already buckling under the strain of the unprecedented influx of wounded people, exacerbated by a lack of pain relief. The director of Al-Shifa Hospital says when large groups of injured are brought in at the same time, medics have no choice but to deal with them on the floor without adequate pain relief. On Thursday, a little girl cried out for her mother as a nurse stitched up her head injury without any anaesthetic. There was none available at the time. Nurse Abu Imad Hassanain said it was one of the worst moments he could recall.
Sometimes we give some of them sterile gauze to bite on and reduce their pain. We know that the pain they feel is more than someone would imagine, beyond what someone their age would stand.
Israel has faced growing international calls for restraints as the Palestinian death toll increases, but it says Hamas will take advantage of any significant pause in its military campaign. Palestinian officials said that as of Thursday, over 10,800 Gaza residents have been killed in air and artillery strikes. About 40% of them are reported to be children. Israel says 1,400 people were killed, mostly civilians, and about 240 were taken hostage by Hamas in the October 7th raid that triggered its assault. Gaza's health ministry has said around half of Gaza's 35 hospitals are out of service, either due to damage from shelling or a lack of fuel.
Meanwhile, more than 1 lakh residents of the Gaza Strip have fled southwards over just the last 2 days as Israeli forces operate, quote-unquote, deep inside the Gaza city. Chief military spokesperson for the Israeli army, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, confirmed this news on Friday as well. In a televised briefing, Hagari said efforts were underway to release hostages held in the Gaza Strip, but that such efforts take time. He said, "We're working all the time and with the initiative on a range of efforts to return the hostages. These efforts are complex, they're not final, they take time, and they're going to take a lot more."
Smoke rises behind Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital. In the courtyard and corridors are thousands of displaced people. At the gates, body bags. Israeli forces fought Hamas militants among ruined buildings in the north of the Gaza Strip on Thursday, inching their way closer to Al-Shifa and another main hospital in Gaza City. In the emergency room, this man says he and others tried to head south, but when they reached the road, a tank fired at them. Others fled along a frontline route. The White House said on Thursday Israel has agreed to pause operations in northern Gaza for 4 hours a day from Thursday, the first sign of respite in Gaza's war, allowing people to flee along 2 humanitarian corridors. Some of those escaping on Thursday said they feared another Nakba, the catastrophe of their mass dispossession after Israel was founded in 1948.
They are driving people to schools and scaring them so they would leave. What we see today is a plan for a second exodus.
What do things look like behind us? Death and destruction. Death and destruction.
US President Joe Biden says he's seeking a longer halt of 3 days to help secure the release of hostages held by Hamas.
We're hopeful. Things are moving along.
Israel unleashed its assault on Gaza in response to a cross-border raid by Hamas gunmen, who killed 1,400 people, mostly civilians, as well as kidnapping about 240. But the plight of Palestinians trapped in the besieged enclave has stoked global calls for a ceasefire, which is rejected by Israel and its main ally, the United States. Palestinian officials said more than 10,800 Gaza residents had been killed as of Thursday, about 40% of them children. At a humanitarian conference in Paris on Thursday, officials from about 80 countries and organisations were trying to coordinate a response. Jan Egeland heads the Norwegian Refugee Council.
We cannot wait a minute more for a humanitarian ceasefire across Gaza for all of the civilian population there. And we cannot wait a minute more for a lifting of the siege, which is collective punishment of 1 million children.
But even as international diplomacy makes room and is sort of tilting towards the Palestinian side, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he's come out in front of the media, vowed to improve the lives of Israeli communities living near the border with the Gaza Strip. He made the comments during a meeting with the local leaders from communities that are placed near the Gazan border. According to Israeli media, the council in charge of planning and building that was approved last week was the plan to construct a community roughly 7 kilometers from the border itself.
There's a very great determination of them and the government to return, even better than what was before. Restore, build, grow. First of all, to restore security, to make sure that there is no Hamas and that Hamas does not return, but also to make sure that there will be a better life for them in the future.
So you've got a war with Lebanon in the north, you've got the Houthis attacking from Yemen. The Gaza war is something that we already know about. Iran-backed proxies is something that people were talking about. And the United States placing their own strike groups and USS Ohio nuclear-class submarines are also in the West Asian waters. But what's happening on the Israeli side? Because just until 10 days ago, Tom believed his daughter had been killed in the attacks by Hamas gunmen on the 7th of October attack, based on unofficial information he had received. On October 31st, the Israeli army confirmed that his daughter had not been identified as one of the people killed in Kibbutz Be'eri, and they believed she was alive and in Gaza. Mourning here has turned into hope, relief into anxiety.
Unofficial reports came in that she was found dead in the kibbutz. Like I say, it was unofficial. I was relieved. I was relieved that she was dead and it was all over. It would have been pretty quick. Now I know she's in Gaza and she's alive. She's going to be 9 in the tunnels, which will be a lovely birthday party for her. She won't even know it's her birthday. She'll have no idea of night or day or time. But yeah, you know, there'll be no birthday party, no birthday cake, no friends around. But you know, now we hope, now we pray, because we know she's alive. You have to completely switch your head around 180 degrees and think, okay, we're going to get her back. We're going to get her back. We're going to get them all back. No matter when we get her back, we will have the biggest birthday party the world has ever seen.
Well, now Saudi Arabia is hosting 2 emergency summits on Saturday to discuss the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. Foreign ministers of the Arab nations have gathered in Riyadh for the Arab League summit to discuss what's happening in the Gaza Strip. The other is a summit of countries which form the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the OIC. Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi is on his first visit to Saudi Arabia to participate in the OIC summit. Saudi Arabia's investment minister Khalid Al-Falih said that the objective of hosting these 2 summits together was to work towards a peaceful resolution to the conflict in Gaza. The summit is expected to focus on the heads of states of the Islamic and Arab countries meeting behind closed doors in a show of unity and stress upon the urgency to stop the Israeli aggression in Gaza and bring about a ceasefire. Talking about the possibility of normalization of ties between Saudi Arabia and Israel, Falih said that even though normalization was on the table, it received a major setback due to what's happened over the last month.
We condemn what the Gaza Strip is facing from military assault, targeting of civilians, the violations of international law by the Israeli occupation authorities. We stress the need to stop this war and the forced displacement of Palestinians and to prepare for the return of stability and peace.
Well, we'll continue to bring you all the latest details from the conflict-ridden region of West Asia, but shifting our focus to some top international news as well. The United States' Food and Drug Administration, it's approved the world's first vaccine for chikungunya. The vaccine, named IXCHIQ, has been approved for individuals who are 18 years of age and above and who are at an increased risk of exposure to the chikungunya virus. IXCHIQ is a single-dose vaccine which is to be injected directly into the muscle. Now, the vaccine contains a live and weakened version of the chikungunya virus, and it may cause symptoms similar to those experienced by people suffering from the virus. The safety of the IXCHIQ vaccine was evaluated across 2 clinical studies conducted in North America with about 3,500 people that participated in it. The most commonly reported side effects amongst those tested were headache, fatigue, muscle pain, joint pain, fever and nausea. Only 1.6% of the recipients suffered from severe chikungunya-like adverse reactions which required medical intervention, and out of those, only 2 recipients with severe chikungunya-like adverse reactions needed to be hospitalized. With all these results emerging in the study, the vaccine comes with a prescribing information warning that the vaccine may cause prolonged chikungunya-like adverse reactions as well. Now, IXCHIQ was approved using the accelerated approval pathway, which allows the FDA to approve certain products for serious or life-threatening conditions based on evidence of a product's effectiveness. The FDA has now asked the vaccine manufacturer to conduct a post-marketing study to assess the risk of these serious reactions following the administration of the IXCHIQ vaccine. Moving on, United States President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping are planning to meet in California on the 15th of November, that is, on the upcoming Wednesday. Now, the meeting will be taking place on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit, which will be attended by both the leaders in San Francisco. A lot is being expected to be on the agenda as the leaders of the 2 fiercely competitive nations meet face-to-face next week. According to President Biden's advisors, the larger context of the meeting is going to be to stabilize relations between the 2 countries. As per 2 senior advisors in the Biden administration, the president would also be looking to bring up issues including Taiwan, election interference, the war in Ukraine, and also the war between Israel and Hamas. Talking about Taiwan, The self-ruled island is set to hold elections next year. And as per the US officials, Joe Biden would seek to present the US's concerns in front of President Xi Jinping with utmost clarity. The United States seeks that Beijing would not interfere in the democratic process in Taiwan. President Biden is also expected to warn Xi Jinping against interfering in the United States' elections, which are scheduled to take place next year. The ongoing wars in Ukraine and Gaza are also expected to be on the agenda as the two nations seek to strengthen their position on the geopolitical chessboard.
For the first time in a year, U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping will meet face-to-face in California for a high-stakes discussion aimed at curbing tensions between the world's two superpowers. The White House confirmed the meeting on Friday, and senior administration officials said the two leaders were expected to discuss the Israel-Hamas war and Russia's invasion of Ukraine, as well as several other topics including North Korea, Taiwan, fentanyl, and artificial intelligence.
I think this is a very important moment that might be a turning point in U.S.-China relations, which have continued to deteriorate for many years.
Vinny Agarwal is a professor of political science at UC Berkeley.
I think having the two presidents meet is a very good idea because there's been a lot of tension in U.S.-China relations over semiconductors, over technology transfer and the like. And so I think the opportunity to have a conversation with President Xi and having President talk to President Biden will be very useful because I think the Chinese are now beginning to see that it's useful to have good relations with other countries, including Korea, Australia, and the like, and they're actually making an effort now to reach out to other countries.
Tensions have flared between the two countries since their last meeting a year ago. In February, Biden ordered the shooting down of a suspected Chinese spy balloon that transited U.S. skies. Biden is also expected to raise Chinese influence operations in foreign elections and the status of U.S. citizens Washington believes are wrongly detained in China. The closely watched interaction, which is set for Wednesday on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in the San Francisco Bay Area, could last hours and involve teams of officials from Beijing and Washington.
We're shifting our focus here. Dispute between two of Turkey's top courts over a politician's imprisonment is raising concerns over the rule of law, with the Bar Association in the country denouncing it as an attempted coup. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says the country needs a new constitution to restore order.
An unprecedented clash between two of the highest courts in Turkey over the imprisonment of a politician accused of trying to overthrow the government is raising concerns over the rule of law in that country. And on Friday, President Tayyip Erdogan waded into the fray, calling for a rewrite of the constitution to resolve the dispute. This was Erdogan telling Parliament the country needs a new constitution as soon as possible. The heart of the issue concerns a member of Parliament who was convicted to 18 years in prison last year for a role organizing these nationwide protests in 2013. He and other defendants have denied the charges, saying the protests happened spontaneously. The protests were one of the biggest challenges to Erdogan's power in his over 2 decades in office. Last month, the nation's highest court, the Constitutional Court, ruled that the politician should be released. His name is Can Atalay. An appeals court, known as the Court of Cassation, called the ruling unconstitutional and filed a criminal complaint against the members of the Constitutional Court. Erdogan has also called the ruling in favor of Atalay's release unconstitutional, and now the Turkish Bar Association, seen here protesting, is accusing the appeals court of an attempted coup. Turkey's main opposition party has joined the Bar Association in criticizing Erdogan and the appeals court.
Well, moving on to Spain from here, where the country's acting Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, looks kind of reassured of another term in office after securing the backing of 2 more regional parties. But it comes amid widespread anger over his pledge of amnesty for Catalan separatists. But why are these protests becoming increasingly intense? Well, here's a report. Take a look.
Increasingly violent protests, led by right-wing demonstrators, have rocked Madrid in recent days over a widely unpopular deal between Spain's acting prime minister and Catalan separatists. The controversial deal will grant amnesty to separatist activists who attempted an illegal breakaway in 2017. In exchange, Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez will get their support, paving the way for him to remain in power. But opposition leaders described it as giving into blackmail by independence leaders and a sign the country was veering back to a dictatorship. The Separatist Party's founder, Carles Puigdemont, who has been living in exile in Belgium and faces charges as a leader of Catalonia during the drive to secede, hailed the agreement as a change of narrative. After Sanchez's Socialist Party failed to clinch a majority in a July election, it was clear they would have to do a deal with smaller parties, including the hardline Catalan separatists, to gain the seats needed to form a government. Without their support, and with the vengeful opposition of the Conservative People's Party that controls the Senate, Sanchez's socialist could be paralyzed to pass legislation, including budgets, risking a vote of no confidence against him or the forcing of a snap election. Sanchez's conservative opponents have accused him of putting the rule of law on the line for his own political gain. Sanchez has secured the backing of 2 other regional parties, which all but assures him an absolute majority in the 350-member Congress in a vote due to take place in the coming days. Meanwhile, Spaniards have been called to show their outrage in town square demonstrations across the country on Sunday. One of the more divisive aspects of the amnesty deal protesters are upset with is that it would allow separatist leaders like Puigdemont to run for office again.
Meanwhile, surgeons in New York have performed the first ever whole eye transplant on a human, an accomplishment being hailed as a breakthrough even though the patient has not regained sight in the eye yet.
Feel anything?
Aaron James is the recipient of the first ever whole eye transplant in a human. Though he hasn't regained sight in it yet, it's an accomplishment that's being hailed as a major medical breakthrough.
The mere fact that we transplanted an eye is a huge step forward, something that within centuries has been thought about but's never been performed.
Until now, doctors have only been able to transplant the cornea, the clear front layer of the eye. James, who survived a work-related high-voltage electrical accident, needed a partial face transplant. Initially, doctors were just planning to include the eyeball as part of the face transplant for cosmetic reasons. The surgery took 21 hours.
You know, they told me, they said, honestly, we never expected it to make it to the transplant, you know. I mean, they never expected it to work at all. And they told me that from the get-go. But just the fact that it's a wild blood flowing through it, I mean, you know, that's the first step, you know, and that's what I told them. I said, you know, even if I can't see, which I didn't have an eye there to begin with, you know, after the accident, you know, maybe at least, you know, y'all can learn something to help the next person.
In the 6 months since the surgery, doctors say the grafted eye has shown important signs of health, including well-functioning blood vessels and a promising-looking retina. Lead surgeon Dr. Eduardo Rodriguez says transplantation of a viable eye opens many new possibilities.
If the possibility of some form of vision restoration occurred, it would be wonderful. But there were significant concerns. The goal was first to perform the technical operation, ideally have it be vascularized, and then whatever happens after that, we'd have to determine with future studies.
Other research teams are developing ways to connect nerve networks in the brain to sightless eyes through the insertion of electrodes, for example, to allow vision, meaning James might still regain sight in his transplanted eye.
And I don't think anyone can claim that he will see, but by the same token, they can claim that he will not see. If at this point, I think we're pretty happy with the result that we were able to achieve with a very technically demanding operation.
I mean, that's how you got to start it. You know, you got to start it somewhere. So hopefully this opens up a new path.
Left, right, down.
Liverpool star Luis Diaz's father, Luis Manuel Diaz, was recently released from captivity by Colombia's largest active rebel group, the National Liberation Army. The rebel group's commander said that the kidnapping was a mistake.
It was an emotional moment as family and friends embraced the father of Liverpool soccer player Luis Diaz Thursday. The elder Luis Manuel Diaz was released after nearly 2 weeks as a hostage of Colombia's largest active rebel group, the National Liberation Army. He was snatched in late October in Barrancas, in the northern province of La Guajira, taken alongside his wife, who was freed within hours of being abducted. Guerrilla groups in Colombia have historically used kidnapping as a fundraising and pressure tactic. A week ago, the guerrilla group said it would free Diaz, and its top commander said the kidnapping was a mistake. The kidnapping of Luis Manuel Diaz has disrupted the government's peace talks with the National Liberation Army. Talks restarted last year in the hope of ending the group's role in Colombia's 60-year conflict, which has killed at least 450,000 people. The two sides began a 6-month ceasefire in August. The Liverpool player Luis Diaz had stayed in England while his father was kidnapped and continued to play in the Premier League. But he publicly expressed anguish at what happened, wearing an undershirt with "Freedom for Dad" written on it when Liverpool played Luton on Sunday.
Well, shifting our focus to some stories from back home. A massive protest was held outside a police station in Rajasthan's Dausa district after a 4-year-old girl was allegedly raped by an SI. The villagers assembled in large numbers outside the police station and beat up the sub-inspector, who is accused of sexually assaulting the minor. Now, the accused sub-inspector, Bhupendra Singh, was on election duty. The accused allegedly lured the girl into his room and sexually assaulted her. The accused has been arrested and an investigation has been ordered in this particular case. Meanwhile, the Bharatiya Janata Party hit out against the Rajasthan government for lack of law and order in the state. Some major stakeholders and their reactions coming up next.
परिवादी के द्वारा रिपोर्ट दिए जाने पर एफआईआर दर्ज कर ली गई है। एफआईआर दर्ज करने के बाद एडिशनल एसपी सिकाऊ जो हैं वो उसकी तफ्तीश कर रहे हैं। तफ्तीश की सारी प्रक्रिया फॉलो की जा रही है। जुर्म प्रमाणित पाया जाने पर आगे इसकी गिरफ्तारी की जा रही है। सब इंस्पेक्टर की सस्पेंड कल सब इंस्पेक्टर को कर दिया गया था। आगे जो उसकी दुराचरण रिपोर्ट है वो श्रीमान आईजी साहब के पास भेज दी जाएगी और उसके आधार पर अग्रिम कार्रवाई की जाएगी।
राजस्थान में दौसा जिले में एक 4 साल की बच्ची को एक पुलिस के सब इंस्पेक्टर ने रेप किया है। हमने इसका संज्ञान लिया है। हम इस मामले में राजस्थान सरकार को नोटिस जारी कर रहे हैं। ये रक्षक के भक्षक बनने का जो मामला है ये प्रदर्शित करता है कि सिस्टम कितना इनसेंसिटिव है, और जब पुलिस वाला एक 4 साल की छोटी बच्ची के साथ रेप करे तो स्थितियां भयावह हो चुकी हैं। निश्चित रूप से हमको प्रिलिमिनरी जो जानकारी मिली है उसके आधार पर हम इसमें आगे एक्शन ले रहे हैं।
देखिए, राजस्थान के अंदर ये लगातार हो रहा है, हर रोज हो रहा है ऐसी घिनौनी हरकतें। 35,000 महिलाओं के साथ दुष्कर्म हुआ है राजस्थान के अंदर, और ये माहौल जो बनाया गया है जिसके अंदर राजस्थान में कांग्रेस सरकार के विधायकों के पीए इन्वॉल्व होते हैं, विधायकों के मंत्रियों के परिवार वाले इन्वॉल्व होते हैं, तो नीचे जो लोग हैं वो क्या देखेंगे? ये जो कानून जो रक्षक हैं वो अपने ऊपर देखते हैं, साहब ये सब कर रहे हैं तो हम क्यों नहीं करें? ये माहौल बिगाड़ने की बात है। आज जो कानून तोड़ना चाहता है वो ताकतवर बनता जा रहा है, और आप और हम साधारण नागरिक कानून से भी डरते हैं कि हम तोड़े ना, भाई कानून एक्शन ले लेगा। हम अपराधियों से भी डरते हैं कि वो हमारे ऊपर एक्शन नहीं ले ले। तो ये पूरी की पूरी जिम्मेदारी आती है मुख्यमंत्री और गृह मंत्री, और दोनों कौन है? अशोक गहलोत।
Friends, today this shocking case that has come to the fore from Dausa, where a 4-year-old, innocent 4-year-old girl has been brutally raped by a sub-inspector in the Rajasthan police. And instead of taking quick action on the accused, on this perpetrator, the Rajasthan police and administration get into action in an institutional manner to save this accused? No FIR is filed till the time the BJP leaders and the people there come out on the streets and protest? Just a cosmetic statement is given that we will take action against this said individual. I will expel him, but no suspension is done immediately. And what about the two other constables, two other police officials who have helped this particular accused in destroying the evidence? Has the Rajasthan police and government taken action on them immediately? What are they waiting for? This shows that on the one hand, Prime Minister Modi and the central government is doing Beti Bachao, save our daughters, make our daughters thrive. And on the other hand, what is the Nara, slogan and action of the Rajasthan government of Ashok Gehlot? Balatkari Bachao, Apradhi Bachao, save the rapist, save the criminal.
Well, political developments coming up next from the state of Karnataka, where 6 months after losing the May Assembly elections in Karnataka, the Bharatiya Janata Party, in an effort to placate Lingayat anger, appointed former Karnataka Chief Minister B.S. Yediyurappa's son, B.Y. Vijendra, as the president of the Karnataka's state unit for the Bharatiya Janata Party. Now, B.Y. Vijendra replaces Nalin Kumar Katil. The BJP, with Vijendra's appointment as state unit chief, has opened the doors to criticism for encouraging dynastic politics, nepotism, something that the BJP goes all guns blazing at. Vijendra's elevation shows that the BJP is still dependent on B.S. Yediyurappa for Karnataka and has not been able to evolve the next generation of pan-Karnataka leaders. Now, who is B.Y. Vijendra? Vijendra is a first-timer MLA from Shikaripura constituency, which was held by his own father, B.S. Yediyurappa, for decades. He has served as secretary of BJP's youth wing in Karnataka and was vice president before he was elevated to the post of the president. The son of the former chief minister is known to be an astute politician and a risk taker, and Vijendra is being touted as the successor to B.S. Yediyurappa's political legacy. Now, B.S. Yediyurappa had vacated the Shikaripura seat, especially for B.Y. Vijendra. But why Vijendra was appointed is a different ballgame altogether. The appointment comes as an acknowledgement that the BJP erred by not giving B.S. Yediyurappa charge of May elections. The May elections, spearheaded by BJP National Organizing Secretary B.L. Santosh, tried to change the time-tested BJP calculations in the Kittur Karnataka and the Kalyana Karnataka regions, which resulted in Lingayat backlash. Now, Vijendra's appointment will likely placate the Lingayat communities in these regions. The BJP does not want to see a similar backlash during the 2024 Lok Sabha elections and wants its state leadership to ensure that the party wins at least 20 of the 28 parliamentary seats in the state of Karnataka.
Of course, at one side, of course, it's a big challenge for me as well to take all the seniors into confidence. At the same time, a lot of expectations from our party Karyakartas also. So definitely I will ensure, by taking everybody's blessings, I will ensure that every Karyakarta will be strengthened in the entire state. Our only aim is to win maximum number of booths. जैसा हमारा नेशनल प्रेसिडेंट नड्डा जी बोलते थे, मेरा बूथ सबसे मजबूत. So we want to ensure we should win the majority of booths in the next Lok Sabha elections. To strengthen to win highest number of MPs from the state of Karnataka.
Sir, any particular region or area that you are concentrating on where this time you felt that in the assembly election the BJP took a severe hit as well, and your long-term as well as short-term goals too, objectives?
See, we are aware of our strengths as well as our weaknesses also. So our aim is to cover entire state, not just one particular region, starting from Mumbai, Karnataka, Kalyan Karnataka, Kittur Karnataka, and Old Mysore region more importantly, and for coastal Karnataka and central Karnataka. So we want to ensure party has been strengthened in each and every corner of the state.
Sir, how do you see the narrative that this is a dynastic politics? Sir, Congress is saying this is a dynastic politics.
People of Karnataka will give the reply for this Congress square in the next Lok Sabha elections.
Meanwhile, fresh developments are underway in the growing India-United States partnership. India and the United States have announced plans to co-produce Stryker armored vehicles as part of the efforts to counter China's influence in Asia. The announcement was made by a senior US official after the annual 2+2 ministerial consultations held between India and US in New Delhi. The defense deal aims to check China's expansionist ambitions, keep the crucial Indo-Pacific channel open, and free from coercion. Let's have a look at what the Stryker combat vehicle actually is. Now, the Stryker is a wheeled combat vehicle produced by the United States. It has two variants and it's prized by the United States for its versatility. Now, the armed vehicle can be used as infantry carriers and reconnaissance platforms. The vehicle is primarily used to move soldiers in and out of battle and also carry medium and large caliber weapons to attack enemy troops. Well, polls are going to take place in Madhya Pradesh on the 17th of November, and for the same, ladies and gentlemen, the Bharatiya Janata Party today released their manifesto for the Madhya Pradesh Assembly elections. Now, the BJP top brass, including its chief JP Nadda, MP CM Shivraj Singh Chauhan and state BJP head VD Sharma launched the party manifesto. The manifesto makes big promises to the farmers, the tribals, women and youth of the state. Let's take a look at what the manifesto essentially promises. Now, the manifesto promises free ration to the poor for 5 years. Women will get housing facilities and skill training as well. Under the Ladli and Ujjwala scheme, women will be able to get gas cylinders for rupees 450. Poor students will get free education from kindergarten till post-graduation, according to the 2023 Sankalp Patra of the Bharatiya Janata Party for the state of Madhya Pradesh. 3 lakh crore people are going to be, 3 lakh crore rupees are going to be spent for empowerment of tribal community. IIT and AIMS type institutes are going to be developed in the state of Madhya Pradesh. 20,000 crore rupees are going to be spent for healthcare development. Some of the salient points of Bharatiya Janata Party's Sankalp Patra. BJP's Sankalp Patra for Madhya Pradesh elections 2023. Let's not forget, 17th is when the state goes to elections. There's going to be free ration to the poor for about 5 years. Other salient points in the Sankalp Patra is that farmers are going to be awarded rupees 12,000 annually under the welfare schemes. Women are going to get housing facilities and skill development training under the new manifesto. Under the Ladli and Ujjwala scheme, women will get gas cylinders for 450 rupees. Poor students will get free education from kindergarten right up till post-graduation. And breakfast is going to be added in addition to the midday meals for government school students. 3 lakh crore rupees are going to be spent for empowerment of tribal community, and IIT and AIMS type and quality level institutes are going to be developed in the state of Madhya Pradesh as promised by BJP's new manifesto. 6 new expressways and 13 cultural centers are going to be built in Madhya Pradesh as part of the new manifesto. 20,000 crore rupees to be spent for healthcare development. A lot that has been promised. JP Nadda, Shivraj Singh Chauhan and other BJP top leaders who were at the event. And just like I promised, every day we must talk about climate change as well. This is our climate change segment, and first and foremost, take a look at this. European Space Agency Chief Joseph Aschbacher warned that the melting of polar ice caps and glaciers is quote-unquote very critical and called upon political leaders to recognize the importance of climate change. Here's a report, take a look.
The situation at the poles is very critical. We have, of course, we see with our satellites day and night what how big the melting of the polar regions is, but also what is the impact on sea level rise. We have some of the most accurate satellite measurements to see how the sea level is rising due to melting of polar regions, glaciers and so on. But what I really expect and hope for, but this is more as a private citizen because it's for the politicians to really implement these actions, is to recognize the importance of climate change, what has to be done to really do everything that is necessary to decarbonize our economy and become carbon neutral by mid of this century. And there, again, you have all the support from the space agencies. The European Space Agency is spending a significant amount of its funding. About 1/4 of our budget is dedicated to Earth observation, which is mostly focusing on climate activities. And yes, we fully support these initiatives with the means we have at our disposal.
And moving on, the exposed cracked floors of parts of Lake Titicaca, South America's largest freshwater basin, nestled amid the Andes Mountains, are an alarming sight for the local farmers and the scientists alike.
This dry patch of land used to be part of Lake Titicaca. Now, record low water levels amid a long spell of drought are threatening the region's ecosystem. It's an alarming sight for local farmers like Manuel Flores.
I am 50 years old. Never before has Lake Titicaca dried up like it is now.
Nestled amid the Andes Mountains, Lake Titicaca is South America's largest body of fresh water and is also the highest navigable lake in the world. It's an important ecosystem for wildlife and a water source for millions of people in the region. But its water levels are now reaching record lows.
This affects us because there is no more food for our livestock and we cannot travel by boat. Now we have to walk and our crops no longer exist because it hasn't rained since last year. So the water has decreased.
The situation is worsened by El Niño weather phenomenon. That means less rain in the area, compounding a long dry spell and rare high temperatures. Experts say many of the factors contributing to the shrinking of Lake Titicaca could be linked to climate change. Xavier Lazaro is an aquatic system specialist with the French Research Institute for Development.
95% of the water loss from the lake is due to evaporation, which shows that this is totally or almost totally caused by climate change.
Farmers and experts say the drought is now approaching critical levels for the region's agriculture. If it does not rain by early December, there will be no planting of potatoes, one of the food staples for Bolivia's rural communities and cities. Lake Titicaca's decline comes with global temperatures hitting record highs, which has impacted rivers, lakes and glaciers from the United States to Asia.
Moving on, the United Nations has warned that around 1.6 million people, that's 16 lakh for us Indians back home, people in Somalia could be affected amid the flooding across East Africa caused by heavy seasonal downpours.
The United Nations has described floods that have uprooted hundreds of thousands of people in Somalia and its neighbours as a once-in-a-century event. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said around 1.6 million people in Somalia could be affected by the heavy seasonal downpours, which follow a historic drought. The floods have already killed at least 29 people in Somalia and forced more than 300,000 from their homes. In Mogadishu on Thursday, Hussein Abtidoun, the regional director of hygiene and beauty restoration, was cleaning the streets with his team.
Yesterday, the rains damaged the engines of many cars. Many tuk-tuks were pulled out of the water. The workers are ready to help in the areas that were affected. We rescued many tuk-tuks carried away by the floods. Our rescue teams are on standby near the dams in the city to save people from the floodwaters.
Among places flooded in Somalia are camps for those already displaced by a jihadist insurgency or by the country's worst drought in 4 decades. Aid groups say people there are being forced to flee for a second time. UN Aid Chief Martin Griffiths said extreme weather linked to the ongoing El Niño weather phenomenon could further escalate humanitarian needs in already vulnerable communities. We know what the risks are, he said, and we need to get ahead of these looming crises.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Top Stories. News and updates continues on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
Hamas attacks Israel. Israel Defense Forces strike back at Hamas. As the war unfolds, watch the comprehensive coverage of the Israel war only on News 9+. To watch the full story, download the app now.
On October 7, Hamas led an unprecedented terror attack in southern Israel, killing over 1,400, most of whom were civilians. Over 212 hostages ever since remain in Hamas custody at an undisclosed location in Gaza. Israel has launched never-seen-before airstrikes in Gaza, killing over 5,000 people already. Let's look at Israel's premier intelligence agencies. The first and foremost, the known world over, is the Mossad, which is the foreign intelligence wing of Israel. The second is Amman, which is the military intelligence of the Israeli Defense Forces. And third, one of the most critical, is the Shin Bet,